Kalikis, and welcome to Book 101. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's award-winning designer, author, and director, no other than Mr. Mark Steven Porro. Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Mark. And
Thank you, Daniel. It's good to be
and
here.
yes, and can you please introduce yourself?
Okay, I grew up in Ridgewood, New Jersey, or as we say, exit 163 off the Garden State Parkway. And I'm one of six children. My parents raised six of us. I'm the fifth out of the six and the tallest. And I went to school at Ohio State University and earned a degree in industrial design. And then I got the acting bug. So I gave up a really good career to move out to Hollywood to start another one that wasn't so predictable. But I did pretty good for a while. It was a lot of fun. And then I started a snack food business with my brother, older brother, to honor my father. He invented a half popcorn snack he called Nutrinuts, and we later called it Grandpa Poe's Originals. And it was we made it a nationwide brand for quite a while, and but you're constantly, I guess, competing with the big boys. So eventually it became very costly for us. And so during I guess, the downslide of that company, I got this call about my mother and her, I guess it was somewhat of a death wish. She was just turned 89 and she was semi-comatose, and my brother put her to her bed and the doctor cut off all medication and called hospice in, and that's when my whole story in life kind of changed. So I moved back to New Jersey into the home there I grew up in and took care of my mom after she woke up. And that's all part of the story. I took care of her for 3.5 years. And my goal was to bring joy and happiness to her last few years. And it wasn't always successful, but I came pretty damn close.
Yes, and congratulations for your debut book. Mr. Mark, can you tell us what's a big difference of award-winning designer, author, and director?
What is the difference between them?
Yes.
Well, I started off in design, so I was very fortunate. I was a pretty creative guy. I grew up in a creative household and went to a very good school. At the time, Ohio State was in the top 3 design schools in the country. And then I was very fortunate to get a very good job with a very good design firm. And that kind of puts you on the map right away. So I started winning some graphic design awards early on, which were very nice and a nice accolades to have. And then with the acting bug, I went out to Hollywood. And when you go out to Hollywood, you have to supplement your, I guess, the in-between work life with other jobs. So I had design. So I did a lot of design for people in Hollywood. That was kind of nice. But then I got into writing. I had one acting class that I took where the teacher kind of required all of us in the class to write a scene and then cast the scene and then have the actors perform the scene. And I was scared to death at first. I was always pretty good at improving and fooling around and stuff and creating characters growing up. But this was the first time it got really serious being in Hollywood. So, but the first scene that I wrote, I cast it well. The 2 actors who performed it were amazing. And it went, I guess, it came off very well. And I got the bug. So I always started, I guess, writing more things. And then I did stand up for a little bit and wrote jokes for a long time.
Especially when you're a dumb name. So I produced a short that was a parody of Law and Order
SVU, which was a very popular television show, but everybody mispronounced that and called it SUV. So it was Law and Order SUV. And I thought, well, wouldn't that be funny if someone wrote an episode where the entire show took place inside an SUV? And at the time, I had a very large SUV. And so I wrote it's about a 16-minute short film. And at one point, we had the murder take place inside the SUV. We had the investigation take place inside the SUV. And then we had the courtroom scene take place inside, where the judge sat in the driver's seat and the witnesses sat in the passenger seat. We had the court reporter in between, and the defense and prosecutor were in the second row. And then the jury was all in the back. And we also had a court reporter and a cartoonist in there. So, and then 4 people on the roof, because we couldn't fit the 13 people in the jury all in the back. So we had 4 on top. And eventually, I think it was a total of 29 actors in and on that car for the courtroom scene. And that won a comedy award at a film festival down in Texas. So that's the award-winning part.
Wow, what a journey, Mr. Mark. What age did you realize that you are good in writing?
Well, I guess when it's a tough thing to get into. Not tough to get into, but you've got to study and you've got to work it. You have to keep writing, even on certain days when you don't want to write. You write. I would get. I guess I lost a lot of sleep because I always had either a tape recorder or a notepad by my bed, and a tape recorder and notepad wherever I went. So whatever something inspired me, I wrote it down or recorded it. And when you're doing that at night, sometimes it's not so helpful because you wake up in the morning and you play the tape back and it's all mumbling because you were half asleep. Or you're writing, you can't decipher anything you wrote because it's all scribbled because, again, you were half asleep. So I had to develop a way to write legibly in the dark, which I still have some struggles with occasionally. Or sometimes I just say, forget it, I got to get up or I'm going to forget this wonderful inspiration, which you don't want to do that because sometimes that spark never comes back again.
So, Mr. Mark, who are your favorite authors that influence you the most?
Well, I've got quite a few, but I would have to say, let's say lately, there's an author named Rick Bragg who has some. He's down from the South, but he worked for the New York Times for a while. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner, and he wrote a book called "All Over But the Shouting." And then Ava's Man is about his grandmother. The first one was basically about his mom. And I just like his style. I also like David Sedaris very much because I have a pretty good sense of humor. And I think I've been, from this book, one of the reviewers actually wrote a very nice, I guess, review about me. And she said that I come close to David Sedaris. I think the quote is, "This author weaves his stories together, employing a wickedly humorous skill, not unlike that of David Sedaris and Augustin Burroughs, who I'm not all that familiar with other than his memoir and who also became a movie, Running with Scissors." So that was... I felt I was in really good company.
Interesting indeed, Mr. Marks. What are your short-term and long-term goals in writing?
Well, this book took many years because it was a very emotional ride, this 3.5 journey I had caring for my mom. But I took extensive notes throughout the whole process. I wasn't sure exactly what form it would take. But I took notes and photographs and videos because I wanted to remember this and record history for my family. But as I was experiencing this and writing notes, I had friends who were going through a similar situation of caring for their elderly parents. And I was able to share my stories, and it seemed to help them get through it or gave them some tips. So I said, well, I think I have something here. So I've got to, that was the goal, to write this memoir, which is not a how-to book. It was just a what I did book. And there's some tips in there, but also a lot of funny stories. My mother had a sense of humor. And so I thought, well, I've got to write this book because I think we can inspire others, especially men, because most of the caregiving for our parents falls on the daughters. And that's still generally true today. But more and more men are jumping in, and I jumped in, and I had a great time. It's an emotional and somewhat it's a, but if you approach it the correct way, which was I was looking for the joy in it, and whenever I got a smile or a laugh from my mom, that was all the encouragement I need to keep going, no matter how mentally, physically, or emotionally tiring it got. And so the response I've been getting from the book was released by Right Life Publishing on Mother's Day of this year. And the response has been just very thrilling and also humbling, because the people are sharing their stories, and they're getting a lot of laughs and a lot of tears out of my book. And it's very, very nice to see that it's resonating with a lot of people. And I have a lot of stories that I do want to write. So the next book is going to be focused more on my dad. My dad plays a pretty good role in this book, but the main focus is my mom. So the next book will be focused more on my dad and more about the snack food. And
I live in France. I've been living here for about 6 years, and there's a lot of stories here. It's been a joy living here, and but there's a lot of stories that I think I
could write. Maybe there'll be more in the fictional line and less memoir. But so I've got a lot of projects in the works, and getting them done is another thing.
Good luck for your goals, Mr. Mark. But before we go on, I want to shout out to the people listening in the United States, most especially the place where you came from, New Jersey. Thank you, New Jersey, for supporting this podcast, because this cutaway, I got 78% audience share.
Oh, super. Hello, yes. New Jersey.
New Jersey, Hackensack at 16%. I got 40 places in New Jersey, but I name 10 of them. Clifton at 1%, Princeton, Newmark, Absecon, Newton, Edison, North Virgin, Jersey City, Egg Harbor, Sparta, and many more. Thank you, New Jersey, for supporting this podcast, because this podcast is created to empower writers all over the world, like Mr. Mark, Stephen Porro. A cup of tea on the Commode. How did you craft it?
That was a difficult, I think the biggest struggle for me was structure. So chronologically, I had that all mapped out in my notes, and I could relive the entire, let's say, 3.5 years, which is the time period the book takes place. But I wanted to. The main struggle I had is I wanted the focus to be on my mom. So I wrote it with very little about me, and then I had an editor read it, and she said, we need to know who the narrator is, because we need to have a reliable storyteller. So we need to know more about you. So then I started adding more and more chapters or larger role for me in the book. So what I did is each of the present day chapters are supported by something from the past, of whether my family or just my mom, or my relationship with my mom, that helped inspire me to take on this role. So throughout the book, there's a lot of flashbacks that you'll understand that I jumped in, and it wasn't such a surprise, I think, for me to take on this role, because of the way I was raised from my mother and my father, and with my brothers and sisters also. They all kind of helped pave the way for me to jump in and do this. So structuring that was a bit of a challenge, but once I found my publisher, I worked with 2 editors there, and they were wonderful, because it was great to have fresh eyes look at it and say, okay, I understand what you're trying to do, but we need to work on this. And so that was I think the biggest struggle for me was not the writing, but the order in which the chapters should go. And I think we came up with a really good solution from the responses that I'm getting.
Congratulations again, Mr. Mark. A cup of tea on the commode. What behind the title of your memoir?
Well, at this point, my mother was pretty much stuck in the bed. So I had to either carry her or stick her in a wheelchair to roll her into the kitchen or the. At this point, she couldn't go to the bathroom anymore because the doorway was too narrow, and so I moved a commode right next to her bed. And getting her on the commode sometimes was a challenge because she could be a very stubborn lady, funny but stubborn as all get out. So once I would get her on the commode, sometimes Mother Nature took a little longer than we all wanted. So to make it a little more pleasant, I offered her one morning her favorite beverage, which was a cup of hot tea, skim milk, no sugar. And it became a hit. So every morning we pretty much served a hot cup of tea on the commode for my mom.
Wow, interesting, Mr. Mark. And according to Mr. J. Watkins, a blueprint how to honor and love those who brought us into the world in their final days. So, Mr. Mark, what are the elements that you put in the memoir to make your readers glued to it?
Well, I have to say, okay, so I mean, the story is lovely, but my mother was a character, and so was
my dad. So it's a very entertaining memoir. And I had a friend of mine who she knew about it because I've been promoting this thing like crazy in all social media, Facebook, even TikTok, Pinterest, Instagram. I have my own blog. I have a YouTube channel with over, I think, 130 teaser videos I've done. Most of those are on the humorous side. But she contacted me and she says, I would love to read your book, but it's too soon for me. I just lost my father last month. And I said, absolutely, there's no rush. So whenever you're ready. And a couple of weeks later, she was in LA, but she's originally from New York. She was flying back to New York for the 4th of July weekend. And she shoots a picture that she puts on Facebook. She says, I'm taking this book on the plane with me. And she would give me updates throughout the flight. She would post on Facebook where she was in the book. And it was lovely because, she's saying, I am laughing so hard and I'm crying at the same time, but I'm just enjoying this so much. And then there's a couple of pretty wild chapters near the end of the book. Again, my mother was quite a character, and she said, the flight attendant is begging me to know what made me fall out of my seat laughing in hysterics. And so hopefully that's another book sale. But this was way too soon for her, but she got more joy out of it than she certainly expected. And she learned a lot, I guess, more. She and I were pretty good friends, but she learned a lot more about me than maybe she wanted. Because I reveal there's very few, I guess, a very thin filter, because I wanted to write a very honest book. And a couple of the critics have said he doesn't shy away from any of the details.
Tried to do it in good taste and certainly maintain my mom's dignity and stuff. But I wanted to write a very honest account. And so that's what we did.
And people are enjoying it. So that's been a very thrill. So I think if people just want to be entertained, they will be entertained. If they do want to learn something that all of us, or not all of us, but many of us are going to have to face this at some point, or
are currently doing it, and they will definitely get something out of this. I think no matter where they are in this thing. So I'm hoping it will
inspire some people to do it. And my goal. Sense of humor is a big deal, always in our family, but throughout any struggle, I think a sense of humor, if you can employ it, it will help you get through any of this stuff. And I certainly used it quite a bit. And my mom was very funny, naturally, so we had a good time. But my goal was to make her laugh at least once a day, and I pretty much accomplished that, I think. And she certainly made me laugh many times as well.
Well done, Mr. Mark. And according to Curious George, beautiful and touching, as well as Miss Barbara, beautiful and heartwarming. So, those touching and heartwarming in the book, can you share to us, Mr. Mark?
Yes. Well, one of the main things I did is um, when I arrived at home, mom was, I called it semi-comatose in bed. She didn't respond to anything, and her doctor cut off all meds and food and moisten her lips to make her more comfortable. But she wants to go, so we're going to let her go. And then hospice was called, and so hospice, when they come, the end is pretty much inevitable. And so that was a bit scary, but we all the kids were there, and we were on death watch, and we had a Catholic priest come in and deliver the last rites, and we just kind of waited. And then a few weeks later, she snapped out of it, and I think, and I have a chapter in the book called "A Silent Scream,"
because I think she was not happy. She was living in her own home, but we had people there that were kind of overseeing things. And mom was not happy with them.
And I don't think they were happy with my mother. So it was not a very good situation. So I think my mom was crying out for help. And so all her kids came, and she was, I think, happy about that. So she snapped out of it. And I started looking around the house and her wardrobe and things like that. And when people get old, they don't lose the desire to feel pretty and be pretty and feeling positive about themselves. And I didn't see any of that in my mom. So I decided when I decided to take over, because she deserved better, I bought her a new wardrobe, because the drab day dresses were not going to work anymore, or I didn't like them. So I bought her a new wardrobe, which she looked great in. And then I created what I called the Day of Beauty. And my mother worked full time. She worked actually for the Bergen Record. She was a proofreader for 30 years, the Bergen Record. And but she treated herself weekly to the beauty parlor, and she went for a shampoo and set and had her nails done. She had gorgeous, long, natural nails. She used to be a nail model or a hand model back in her 20s. And so she had these beautiful nails, always painted red. And so she would get a manicure and a shampoo and set at the beauty parlor. And I don't know how many years it's been since that happened, but her nails were still long, and they were still painted red, but her hair was now long again, because she went into this phase after you have the kids. The hair gets shorter and shorter. And so now she had very long hair again. It was beautiful, beautiful, long white hair. And so I wanted to recreate that beauty salon treatment at home. So on Sundays, originally, I had to move that, though, because being a Catholic girl, she said, we don't do this on the Lord's Day. So I had to switch that to Saturday. And I always sponge bathed her in the morning and night anyway. But on this day, I sponge bathed her. Then when she was sitting on the commode, I soaked her feet in Epsom salts and gave her a shampoo and blow dried her hair. And then she got a full body massage and body lotion. And then I put her hair in a ponytail. Sometimes I would braid it. And then I did a manicure and took care of her nails.
Those precious nails were they were coveted by her very much, so I had to be very careful with those. And then I gave her some bright red lipstick to match the nails. And I put her in the wheelchair when we were done, and I'm wheeling her into the kitchen for breakfast. And in our living room, in between the bedroom and the kitchen, is a large mirror. So I set her in front of that mirror, and she looked at herself. I don't know when the last time she looked in the mirror, but she looked at herself, and she was just beaming. And I leaned in and I whispered to her, I said, who is that pretty girl? And she just smiled, and she goes, I don't know. I said, that's you, Mama. And the profound effect that had on her and on me was amazing. And I just said, oh my gosh, when was the last time she felt this beautiful? And so every morning from that point on, between the bed, I stopped her in front of that mirror, even in between the days of beauty, and just leaned in and said, who is that pretty girl? So I wanted to make sure she knew I still felt she was beautiful, and I wanted to make
sure that she also felt that way. So that was That was a very special moment, I think, for both of us.
Well done, Mr. Mark. And according to S. Robinson, a brilliant read from beginning to end.
Oh,
Wow.
wow, yeah, that's nice. Thank you.
That'd be awesome. So, Mr. Mark, how do you feel yourself? Experience have shaped your writing.
Well, I think it's like anything. It's like a muscle. The more
I think I'm pretty good at it, and it's trying to. Uh,
you
when you first start, they call it, let's say, the
vomit
vomit.
draft. You want to get it all out on the paper first. So you get it out, and then you start honing it and honing it and honing it, and so you get down to the essential parts that are needed to tell the story that other people will enjoy. You don't want to like dwell on things that you think are important. You want first, let's say I write it for me, and then I write it for the audience, or I edit it for the audience because I want to keep it interesting. I want to keep the story moving along, and I think as the more you write, the better you get at doing that.
Mr. Mark, what your daily writing routine like?
Well, to be honest, if I always write notes, as soon as I don't necessarily sit down and have, let's say, I want 5,000 words or whatever a day. Or
I'll
keep the
notes when I get inspired or think of something. What was interesting about writing my mother's book? I had a lot of stories, and once you start tapping into your memory,
they just start flooding out. So a lot of those stories were not appropriate for my mother's book. So they went into notes for my dad's book. And so while I was writing my mother's book, it would spark a memory that I said, okay, this is better for my dad's book. So let me jot down the gist of that so I don't forget it and put it into the folder for my dad's book. And then, so I have a lot of my dad's book laid out. And but I haven't sat down to do the final writing of it yet. I've got maybe even the vomit draft, and I know I have the structure and I have the ending of it, but I will sit down because I've been spending a lot of time marketing this book. I want this book to get out to as many people because I think it has a good inspirational story that will hopefully help other people through their caregiving experiences. But so I'm not that particular type of writer where I'm doing this full time. I've got my life in France is filled with lots of stuff. So with the marketing and creating all these teasers and all this other creative stuff you have to do to market the book, even though I have a publisher, a lot of that still falls on the author. And so that's been the focus. And I've also been writing some articles. Some people who I've met who say, we don't have a podcast but we do have a magazine and we're interested in this topic. Would you be interested in writing an article? So that's been very nice. Some of those I'm doing writing short subject along the same lines of the caregiving. And then when I sit down to do my dad's book, I have a ton of notes. So I've just got to sit and then concentrate. And sometimes when I do that, like with this book, sometimes I don't go to sleep for quite a while. You just go and just write. If you have the inspiration. So I know I have the inspiration. I just got to sit and say, okay, now I'm ready to focus on this book and not put the other one to bed, but maybe slow down with the marketing a bit once this thing kind of continues down the road on its own with I guess with some of its own momentum.
Well done, Mr. Mark. But before we go on, I'm inviting you to listen to my other podcast, Food 101, our third season, with Chef Alessandro, one of the best executive chefs in one of the best restaurants in downtown Toronto. So please do listen to our latest episode. We talk about Thanksgiving, people. Thanksgiving, because in Canada, we're celebrating Thanksgiving on the 9th of October, plus one more. Our books are out, not only one, but 7 volumes, people. Food 101, Volume 1 Basics is all you need to create a delicious food. Available on Amazon and leading online bookstores worldwide. So, Mr. Mark, a cup of tea on the Commode. what do you think the best highlight?
All right, this is something I just came up with recently. So there was a recurring dream I had as a kid, and it was me and my mother in a rowboat, and I was in the front. It was a glue. I just see it wasn't color; it was in gray, and we're like in a marshy day. It was cloudy, and my mother was rowing, and I'm in the front of the boat, which is odd because usually if you're rowing, we're going that direction, the opposite of the rower. So I always thought this was my mother guiding me through the murky waters of childhood, and because I had two older brothers that were pretty good at torturing me, and two older sisters that tried to tickle me to death, and so I was teased a lot. I had asthma as a kid, and so I guess I was a lot of fun for my older siblings. Now I'm the tallest, so payback is coming, just so they know. And so I thought that my mother was leading me. And then as I took on this role of caregiver for her, I could reinterpret that dream where I am in front, but I am guiding the way. And my mother has the oars in her hands, and she's the engine. But I'm the one removing all obstacles that are, I guess, impeding our journey. Because in sailing, as in I'm sure in rowing, the destination is not the goal; it's the journey. And this journey was lovely. And so if I interpret the dream, maybe Freud would get very excited about this. If I interpret the dream opposite, where I was leading the way, I think that makes that dream even more meaningful. But that's the only dream I had that was, I think, recurring a long, long time in my childhood. And so when I first rescued, I felt like I was rescuing my mother. And I could reinterpret that now because at that point, I was never married, I had no children. My business was struggling. My Hollywood career was kind of petering out because I was getting older, and you age out at a certain point if you don't have a nice career before that. And so I rescued my mother, but I think maybe it was, in fact, my mother rescuing me because she gave me purpose and something to really, I guess, hang my hat on. By crying for help, and I came to help, and I think she may have helped me more than I helped her. And out of it became this book, which was lovely. And so I think it was pretty.
Very well said, Mr. Mark. So, what one theme or message you hope readers will take away from your book?
Well, again, I think many of us,
they say
50 million people over 80, just in the U.S. alone currently.
And it's projected to be about 426 by 2050. So we are going to have to deal with this, I think, as a society. And if people, I think, jump in with the right attitude. I mean, how long did our parents take care of us? At least 18 years, some a lot longer. So we can certainly take care of them because at one point we had a pretty stressful day for both of us. And my mother asked me that evening, why are you doing this? And I really had to think about it. But I answered at the time, I said, because it's an honor for a son to take care of her mother, his mother. And she
says, it is? I said, absolutely. And then I had to defend it. I said, how long did you take care of us? And then I went through all these incidents in my childhood where she came to my rescue.
So I think it is definitely an honor for a child to take care of their parents. And it can be tough, but if you have the right attitude and certainly get the support that you need, whether it's from your other side care people to help as well.
Because I was very lucky. Both of my parents died in their beds in their home with very little pain.
They weren't stuck in a hospital with all medication and strangers and tubes in and out of their body and things like that. So, and I was with both of them when they took their last breath, and it's a surreal moment, but it's beautiful to be with them as they transition. And it's a lovely experience, and I wouldn't have traded it for the world.
Yes. And thank you for sharing to us, Mr. Mark. And thank you, listeners, for my latest score of 26 and belong to 10% popular show globally. And of course, FeedSpot, thank you for being on the number 7 best art book podcast. Need to follow these 2023. Thank you so much. So, Mr. Mark, what are your inspiring words for those aspiring writers out there?
Well, I'll do the same words I use when I approach any new adventure. I find the joy, look for the joy, and so let's say applying to writing specifically. If there's a writer's block, find another angle to make it more enjoyable. I don't know. I've never really dealt with writer's block because I have a pretty good imagination, and if you got to shake it up a little bit, you get up and you do some push-ups or jumping jacks or something just to get yourself out of that block. But any adventure that I've done, it helps having a positive attitude. So I look for the joy and find the joy, and it's a great way to live. I have a lovely life, and sometimes there's been some real difficulty, especially with business and struggling in Hollywood and stuff. But you find the joy. You could have a miserable month and you get one audition that goes well, and it's like, yes, life is great. And it's and focus on that moment and that joyful, if it's a split second, that can pull you through some of the dark times. So find the joy.
Yes, people, find the joy to pursue your writing or everything that you are doing. So, Mr. Mark, can you please invite our listeners to buy your book, A Cup of Tea on the Commode?
Yes, it's available on Amazon everywhere and a number of other online retailers, and I believe a lot of independent bookstores. I have our distributor is out of Chicago, and but if you go to a cup of tea on the commode.org, and if you go to the book section, there is a buy button that will give you lots of options of stores to purchase it from. So Amazon is your best bet, and it's available in paperback, in ebook, and also in large print, because I think a lot of our readers, like me, are baby boomers, and they may want a little larger type.
The book will be coming out hopefully by Christmas time.
Let's support Mr. Mark Stephen Porro, because if you support him, more books to come. You are most welcome to come back to promote your second book, Mr. Mark.
Super.
Looking forward to it.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you very much. This was a lot of fun.
Yes. And once again, thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
Modicon people, see you soon.